Have you ever stopped to wonder how a tiny problem halfway across the planet can suddenly mean empty shelves at your local store? Well, today we're diving into the powerful, invisible force that makes it all happen. It's called the Bullwhip Effect, and it's right at the heart of our modern global supply chain crisis.
I mean, just think about this for a second. We're now living in a world so interconnected that a single conflict, thousands of miles away, can have a direct and incredibly fast impact right where you live, on your supermarket shelves. It's not science fiction, it's our reality.
So, the big question is how? How does a tiny little ripple of uncertainty manage to build into this massive tidal wave of disruption that can sweep across the entire global economy? That's exactly what we're going to break down. Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we first need to unpack the core concept. It's an idea that's actually been studied for decades, but boy has it found some powerful new relevance in the world we live in today.
The best way to think about it is like cracking an actual whip. It takes just a small flick of your wrist, right? But that tiny motion creates this huge, powerful wave that travels all the way down the leather. Well, in a supply chain, a small change in what you and I want to buy, that's the flick of the wrist. And as that signal travels backwards from the store to the warehouse to the factory, it gets amplified into something totally wild and distorted.
All right, so how does this actually play out in the real world? Let's get into the mechanics because it's this really fascinating mix of, human psychology meeting some cold, hard logistical facts.
So, it all starts small. Let's say a drone strike somewhere causes a minor 3-day shipping delay. No big deal, right? Well, the retailer sees their backup stocks start to dwindle, and they get nervous. So to protect themselves, they don't just reorder what they need. They place a much bigger panic order. Now the manufacturer way upstream sees this huge inflated order rolled in and thinks, whoa, demand is exploding. They have no idea it's just a little panic buy. So what do? They crank up production massively.
And this chart just illustrates the distortion perfectly. A tiny 5% little blip in what people are actually buying can lead a retailer to overorder by 50%. But look at the end of the line. The manufacturer misreads that signal so badly, they might surge their production by a staggering 400%. That right there is the bullwhip effect in action. It turns a whisper into a scream. Okay, let's take this out of the theoretical and into the real world and see how this all builds into that 2026 crisis scenario we talked about. Turns out, our entire global system has this critical vulnerability, a single choke point where this effect can be triggered on an absolutely massive scale.
Yeah, for decades, when we heard about the Strait of Hormuz, we thought about oil prices. But a major conflict there suddenly reveals it as the single point of failure for almost everything else we buy. Electronics, clothes, car parts, you name it. It's the one vital artery connecting factories in the East to all of us consumers in the West.
And what's really eye-opening here is the contrast. The old model, the one everyone used, was called just-in-time. It was built for pure peak efficiency. But here's the catch. It could only handle maybe a 2-day delay. So when ships are forced to ditch the Suez route and go all the way around Africa, it adds a crippling 14 days to the trip. A system that's only built for a 2-day tolerance just completely collapses. And that leads to empty shelves everywhere.
So, we've seen the problem. And yeah, it's huge, it's complex. But what's the defense? What can we do about it? Well, the primary weapon we have against the bullwhip effect is technology.
These modern software platforms are total game changers. They let companies literally map out their entire supply network and then run virtual stress tests, simulating what would happen if a key port suddenly shut down. With real-time data on every shipment, the system knows instantly if a ship is delayed and can adjust automatically. And most critically, all this visibility helps eliminate the very panic ordering that starts the whole bullwhip crack in the first place. But it's not just about cool software. This kind of crisis is forcing a really fundamental philosophical shift in how businesses even think. It's about moving away from that obsession with pure efficiency to a whole new model of resilience. So welcome to the just-in-case model. First step is regionalization. Instead of making everything in one far-flung place, companies are moving manufacturing closer to their customers. Second, much smarter buffer management, using AI to predict risks and hold just the right amount of safety stock, not too much, not too little. And third, and this one is fascinating, transparency. Companies are actually starting to collaborate with their rivals, sharing shipping space during a crisis just to keep the whole economy stable.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean?
Well, it means these strategies, they aren't just good ideas or best practices anymore. They become something much, much more fundamental.
This quote just nails it. In a world that's defined by geopolitical shocks and fragile supply lines, being able to see the risks in your network and react intelligently, well, that's not a competitive advantage anymore. It's the bare minimum you need just to stay in business. The old era of efficiency at all costs is officially over.
And that leaves all of us with a really powerful question to think about. As our world keeps getting more and more unpredictable, it forces us all to reevaluate what we prioritize. Are we building systems that are lean and fast, or are we building systems that are strong enough to actually withstand the storm? The answer to that question might just determine who thrives and who disappears.